The elevator's brass buttons gleamed under harsh fluorescent light as I pressed 12, the familiar weight of exhaustion settling into my shoulders. Another late night at Morrison & Associates, another stack of contracts bleeding red ink across my desk. The building's after-hours silence had become my sanctuary. No ringing phones, no chattering colleagues, just the steady hum of ventilation and the distant whisper of traffic far below. I'd been working these midnight hours for 3 months now, ever since the Henderson case demanded round-the-clock attention. The law firm occupied floors 9 through 12 of the Meridian Building, a 1960s monument to corporate ambition that had aged into respectability. Its narrow hallways and outdated fixtures felt more like home than my actual apartment these days. The elevator lurched upward with mechanical precision, each floor announced by a soft chime. 7, 8, 9. The numbers climbed in their predictable sequence, yet tonight felt different. The ascent seemed longer, the space more confined. I loosened my tie, blaming the stuffiness on the building's antiquated circulation system. 10, 11, 12. The doors slid open with their usual pneumatic sigh, revealing the familiar landscape of my professional purgatory. Fluorescent strips cast their clinical glow across beige carpeting and mahogany-paneled walls. The reception desk sat empty, Margaret's reading glasses folded neatly beside her computer monitor. Everything appeared exactly as I'd left it 2 hours ago when I descended for a quick dinner at the deli across the street. I made my way toward my corner office, keys jingling softly in the oppressive quiet. The Henderson files awaited me in neat stacks, their manila covers promising another sleepless night of depositions and precedent research. I settled into my leather chair, the familiar creak a small comfort in the building's hollow silence. The first anomaly was subtle, a draft that shouldn't have existed. My office windows were sealed units, part of the building's climate control system, yet cool air brushed against my neck with persistent regularity. I adjusted the thermostat, assuming some malfunction in the aging HVAC system. The sensation persisted, accompanied by the faintest whisper of movement behind me. I turned, finding nothing but the darkened hallway beyond my open door. The cleaning crew had finished hours ago, their industrial vacuum tracks still visible in the carpet's deep pile. Yet the feeling of presence lingered, that peculiar awareness of being observed that raises primitive alarms in the human psyche. Returning to my work, I tried to dismiss the unease as fatigue-induced paranoia. The Henderson case had consumed my thoughts for weeks, transforming routine legal research into an obsessive quest for precedent. Perhaps the isolation was finally affecting my judgment, creating phantoms where none existed. The second anomaly arrived with the elevator's distant chime. The sound echoed through empty corridors with unusual clarity. I paused, pen hovering over a particularly dense contract clause, listening to the mechanical whisper of doors opening and closing sounding as though coming from the floor above. No footsteps followed, no voices disturbed the silence. The elevator had simply moved, as if summoned by an invisible passenger. I walked to the reception area, peering down the hallway toward the elevator bank. The brass doors stood closed, their polished surface reflecting the fluorescent strips in distorted patterns. The floor indicator showed 12, my floor, yet I distinctly remembered hearing the chime from a higher level. A sudden chill went down my spine. Impossible, I thought to myself. The Meridian Building had only 12 floors, shaking the strange feeling as echoes of the empty building playing tricks. I returned to my office. I noticed the Henderson files had shifted slightly on my desk. The neat stacks I'd arranged with obsessive precision now showed subtle disarray, as if someone had rifled through them with careful fingers. I straightened the papers, attributing the disturbance to my own unconscious movements. The third anomaly was olfactory, a scent that didn't belong in the sterile environment of corporate law. Something organic and earthy, like soil after rain or flowers left too long in stagnant water. The smell drifted through my office in waves, strongest near the door that led to the hallway. I checked the ventilation grates, wondering if the building's ancient ductwork was circulating odors from the street or basement levels. The scent grew stronger as the night progressed, accompanied by sounds that defied easy explanation. Soft footsteps in the corridor outside, too light to be security guards making their rounds, the whisper of papers being shuffled in distant offices, the creak of leather chairs adjusting to invisible occupants. Each noise had a rational explanation, yet their accumulation created an atmosphere of wrongness that made my skin crawl. I found myself checking the hallway with increasing frequency, drawn by a compulsion I couldn't name. The corridor stretched in both directions, lined with closed office doors and punctuated by the elevator bank's brass gleam. Emergency lighting cast long shadows that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. The building's bones groaned softly around me, settling into configurations that felt subtly different from their daytime arrangements. The fourth anomaly was visual, a flicker of movement at the edge of my peripheral vision. I turned quickly, catching glimpses of shadow that dissolved under direct observation. The phenomenon repeated with maddening regularity, always just beyond the threshold of clear perception. I blamed eye strain, the inevitable result of hours spent reading fine print under artificial light. Yet the shadows seemed to possess their own intelligence, appearing when I was most absorbed in my work and vanishing the moment I looked up. They moved with purpose, flowing along the walls like liquid darkness, seeking hidden pathways through the building's geometry. I began to feel watched, studied by a presence that existed just beyond the reach of my senses. The elevator chimed again, this time with a different tone, deeper, more resonant, as if the sound originated from a greater height again. I walked to the hallway, noting that the floor indicator now showed 13. Impossible. The building had no 13th floor, yet there it was, glowing with amber certainty above the brass doors. I pressed the call button, driven by curiosity that overrode my growing unease. The doors opened immediately, revealing an interior that seemed subtly altered. The same brass fixtures, the same carpeted floor, yet the proportions felt wrong, too deep, too narrow, as if the elevator shaft had been stretched upward into spaces that shouldn't exist. The button panel showed 13 floors, the topmost glowing with soft invitation. I stared at the impossible addition, my rational mind insisting on architectural impossibility, while my eyes registered undeniable evidence. The building's blueprints were matters of public record. 12 floors, no more. I stepped back, allowing the doors to close, but the image remained burned into my consciousness. 13 floors. The number pulsed in my thoughts like a migraine, disrupting my concentration and filling me with nameless dread. I returned to my office, but the Henderson files had lost their urgency. The case that had consumed my professional life now seemed trivial compared to the mystery unfolding around me. The fifth anomaly was tactile, a sensation of fingers brushing against my shoulders as I worked. Light touches that could have been imagination except for their persistence, and the way they made my skin contract with primitive revulsion. I spun around repeatedly, finding nothing but empty air and the familiar landscape of my office. Yet the touches continued, growing bolder, more insistent. The building's silence had transformed into something oppressive, pregnant with unspoken threats. I could hear my own heartbeat in the stillness, the sound unnaturally loud in the fluorescent-lit tomb that had become my workplace. The Henderson files lay forgotten as I focused on the growing certainty that I was no longer alone on the 12th floor. The elevator chimed again, and this time I heard footsteps, soft, measured, approaching down the carpeted hallway. I grabbed a letter opener from my desk, its blade catching the fluorescent light as I moved toward the door. The footsteps paused just outside my office, accompanied by the sound of slow, deliberate breathing. "Hello?" I called out, my voice cracking with tension. "Security?" Silence answered me, but the presence remained. I could feel it waiting just beyond the threshold, patient and implacable. The air grew colder, carrying that strange organic scent more strongly now. Something was standing in my doorway, invisible, but undeniably real. I stepped forward, letter opener extended, and felt the temperature drop another 10 degrees. My breath misted in the sudden chill as I crossed the threshold into the hallway. Empty, yet the presence had simply moved, relocating to a position behind me, inside my office. I turned, and for one terrifying moment, I saw it clearly. A figure of impossible height and thinness, its face a pale oval marked by eyes that held no human warmth. It smiled at me, with lips that seemed to stretch too wide, revealing teeth like yellowed pearls. Then it was gone, leaving only the lingering scent of earth and decay. "What do you want?" I whispered to the empty office. The answer came as a whisper that seemed to originate from the walls themselves. "To show you the 13th floor." The elevator chimed again, its doors standing open in invitation. The 13 glowed like a beacon, promising answers to questions I was afraid to ask. I walked toward it slowly, each step feeling like a surrender to forces beyond my comprehension. The doors closed in behind me with finality. The elevator began to rise, passing 12, ascending into impossible space above the building's documented structure. The 13th floor awaited, and with it the revelation that this was all inevitable. The doors opened to darkness, a void, a space that shouldn't exist, and with that I realized with certainty that there was no going back.